Enlightenment ecosystem, literally enlightenment itself in your own home, wherever you are. Proper customized spiritual service helping you to complete with your life negativity. Withdrawal from life, self-hatred, self-denial, self-doubt, so much of tiredness, laziness, we can support you, aligning your diet, your attitude, your aptitude, your understanding about life. We can help you with everything. If you are interested in enlightenment, we will immediately bring this to you. If you are not interested, we will explain the whole science, inspire you and make you interested in enlightenment time. We need to cater this enlightenment science to the whole world wherever they are, because enlightenment is the birthright of all human beings. Kailasa is responsible to provide that to all human beings. Kailasa is the totality of the knowledge I received from my gurus and practiced in my life, perfected by teaching millions of people from all cultures, time zones, backgrounds, genders, nationality, race, from every creed. So this absolutely perfected knowledge available to you, served to you in your home without even you moving out of your couch, free of cost.
Just be alive for next 3 years. Don't die within next 3 years. Just don't die within next 3 years. Be alive. Somehow be alive. I'm working sincerely. I will reach you somehow. Somehow I will reach you. Commitment to humanity. Just don't die within next 3 years. I will reach you wherever you are, whichever corner of the world you may be. I will reach you with enlightenment. You manifesting the space, state, powers, being Paramashivoham. It is possible, and it is possible for you. Paramashiva will reach you with enlightenment science. I know he is going to do the job. Just be alive for next 3 years. Nothing else.
What I mean by the word e-Kailasa, listen intensely. Enlightenment ecosystem, literally enlightenment itself in your own home, wherever you are. If you cannot come to Kailasa, it's okay. Kailasa can come to you. Kailasa coming to you is e-Kailasa. I will revive Hinduism. I am a Hindu revivalist, not by any revolution, but by evolution. And setting model community. Kailasas, enlightenment ecosystems, Sarvanyapitas all over the world. All powerful cognition, knowledge, only when you live, power manifestation and possibilities manifestation happens. It's a fundamental truth. Hinduism cannot live exclusively as one sampradaya. No. All sampradayas of Hinduism is an ecosystem. So don't keep quiet thinking that if one sampradaya is attacked, only that sampradaya is going to be affected. All of us are ecosystem. I invite all of you to get involved and enjoy Hinduism by the principle of Dharmo Rakshati Rakshitaha. When you protect Dharma, Dharma protects you. We will make the whole planet flourish spiritually. The spiritual prosperity will happen to the whole planet. We all have to coexist together. We get you health. We get you ability to build beautiful relationships in your life. We get you direct spiritual support, and we make sure you become wealthy. We won't stop giving you just good life. We will literally not stop till you live enlightened life. Manifesting the state of Paramashiva, space of Paramashiva, powers of Paramashiva, being of Paramashiva. Whole world should become e-Kailashians.
I want the whole world to know Hindus have something great to contribute to the world. We have something great to contribute to the world. Let us do that.
E-Kailasa is proper customized spiritual service helping you to identify your root patterns of suffering. We have perfected the science of helping every individual from every cultural, religious, nationality background. You will have lowest reactionary assumptions, highest awakened response, alive response for life continuously. E-Kailasa is enlightenment ecosystem, literally enlightenment itself in your own home, wherever you are. Proper customized spiritual service helping you to complete with your life negativity, withdrawal from life, self-hatred, self-denial, self-doubt, so much of tiredness, laziness. We can support you aligning your diet, your attitude, your aptitude, your understanding about life. We can help you with everything. If you are interested in enlightenment, we will immediately bring this to you. If you are not interested, we will explain the whole science, inspire you and make you interested in enlightenment science. We need to cater this enlightenment science to the whole world wherever they are, because enlightenment is the birthright of all human beings. Kailasa is responsible to provide that to all human beings. Kailasa is the totality of the knowledge I received from my gurus and practice manifested in my life, perfected by teaching millions of people from all cultures, time zones, backgrounds, gender.
Nithyanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtam Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasya Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Triguna Rahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Nithyanandam, welcome to each and everyone that are watching us right now after a powerful manifestation of the Shaktis from the space of oneness with Swamiji himself. Now, we are joining all of you to share with you all about the World Humanitarian Day today, it being the World Humanitarian Day 2021. We are joining with all of you to share with you all about the World Humanitarian Day. The UN has declared this day. Theme for this year is about the human race for climate change. The climate crisis in today's world is something in a very, very unimaginable level. And all the leaders, world leaders, thinkers, opinion makers, decision makers are striving to how to combat with this climate crisis, but not knowing what exactly is the way out of this maze. And the whole humanity is in dire need of solution for this whole climate change crisis. While there are so many leaders and so many opinion makers who are trying to tackle the cascading effects of the climate change, the disasters, poverty, animals dying, and people dying, homes getting destroyed, and so much of economic crisis that are happening around the globe, along with the pandemic, climate change has taken on humanity globally. There are so many solutions that people are trying to apply. There are so many paths, so many methods that to use to tackle the climate change. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Jagadguru Mahasannidhanam, His Divine Holiness Bhagavan Sri Nithyananda Paramashivam, having taken the responsibility of the superconscious breakthrough to the humanity, out of his extreme compassion, the avatar as the cosmic descent, Swamiji has revealed, Swamiji has worked for more than 30 years tirelessly to combat this climate change crisis using a very unique, very powerful, and a clear scientific solutionary methodology. In this segment, we are going to take you all through what is this climate change crisis exactly, and what exactly is the solution that the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has revealed to the world, has worked for more than 30 plus years to combat the climate change crisis. So, Kailasa, the climate emergency which is there right now faced by the world, Kailasa has taken the responsibility to heal and protect the entire world. And this reminded of what the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism always says, that Kailasa has the spiritual responsibility for the welfare of the whole globe itself. That is why Swamiji has started various initiatives for 26 years now, starting from No Hungry Human to where the vision of Swamiji being not a single human being, or in that case, any being should go hungry. So where you can see that to this day, billions of free meals served and continuing across all the Kailasas around the globe. And to discuss this today, joining with us is also Manitya Swatantra Priyananda, Nithyanandamma,
Nithyanandam,
Brahmacharini of the Nithyananda order. She is also joining with us to share with us, to speak and share with us on this climate emergency and Kailasa's spiritual solution for that.
yes, Nithyanandam. So this is a very important day, and as you were sharing, the world right now is looking at many different solutions for this crisis, and basically we need to really go at the root of the problem, not just looking at the external consequences that we see, but understanding why we have manifested this. Because as Hinduism declares, one of the fundamental principles is I am responsible for the reality that is experienced. And so we need to start looking at what is the root of the problem and addressing that, and taking the responsibility as a society coming together to change that. And so one of the fundamental also principles of cosmic principles, Hindu principles, is always operating from the cognition that the entire world is my family. And from that context, taking the responsibility and deciding to do what is necessary to create a better future for all beings, where all beings can peacefully coexist in a non-violent way. So together we can make this change happen.
Yes, ma'am. Like you beautifully quoted from the Mahaupanishad, Sudhaiva Kutumbakam, the entire world is my family. That is a fundamental principle, that is a fundamental cognition that every Hindu is operating with, because Hinduism declares that the whole world, all the sentient beings in the whole world is part of our family. Actually, before going into this subject, going into how Swamiji envisions as Kailasa, and what is the stand Kailasa takes as by taking the spiritual responsibility for the whole world. Before we dive into that, I would just like to share a few words about the climate crisis that we are facing today. I'm very sure that all of us, this is not some new subject for us, because day to day, all of us are being severely impacted by this. Heat waves that comes only once in 4 years is happening almost within every few weeks now. Floods are happening all across the globe. You all might have read the news that Germany had one of the worst ever floods in its history. So many in China recently floods happened, and earthquakes are hitting in so many places. Tsunami warnings are being given. Volcanoes erupting and what not. Just in the time span of last 2 years, we have already lost trillions of beings, trillions, including the animals, including the plants, including everyone, whether it is in the wildfires or whether it is in the floods, is in the earthquakes that are happening, what not, heat waves, so many beings, almost so many species are in the verge of extinction, not just endangered, but extinction itself.
And another big issue is, even as governments, even as people are trying to tackle one impact of one disaster that is happening, or impact of one crisis, there is another. Just like how the whole pandemic began and took the whole attention of the humanity was focused on trying to tackle the pandemic, this climate change crisis took a huge toll on planet Earth. And this time, not just the economy, not just the GDP of the whole world, but even the consciousness of the whole world is beaten down to such a level that hundreds and hundreds of people are having so many mental health issues. People have given up hope. People are contemplating on suicides. People are insecure about what their future will be.
Actually, while right now, if you see, we might be very aware that the pandemic, how the pandemic has taken a toll on the entire humanity from 2019 and it started to now, just last 2 years, not even 2 full years, but like maybe 1.5 years time span, it's already has changed the very norm of the humanity itself. What we all know as the modus operandi of all the human beings is today very different. This is not what we know the world just a year and a half before. But amidst this, while the pandemic is already there and already so many governments are thinking how to combat it, whether is it the vaccination is a solution or whether the lockdowns can be imposed without the economy being impacted. Well, these are the thinking. There's one huge impact that is also being caused by this climate crisis that the entire world is facing today. People might blame saying, oh, plastic has increased. People might blame saying, oh, it's the automobile industries. Or you can say so many things. End of the day, our lives, our future, and the next generation, all of our lives are getting impacted. You know it because you are also living in the same planet and you are experiencing this even to this time. Because the climate is so different. What was there just 20 or 30 years before? What kind of a climate we had? What kind of seasons were there? Everything has changed in such a drastic level. In so many cities, the species like sparrows have become extinct from the cities. Now, amidst this alarming crisis that is right now there, what is the solution? Who is the only hope for humanity? What is the only solution for this? Everyone are running around in a maze where nobody knows. Everyone are trying hard, but nobody knows the way out. We have the avatar, the supreme pontiff of Hinduism, the 1008th living incarnation of Paramashivoham, who has lightened all of us with solution for humanity. So before we enter into this, let's watch this short video on how Kailasa has taken the spiritual responsibility for the whole world.
Kailasa is taking up the responsibility of uniting the nations for ancient heritage, uniting nations for ancient knowledge and scriptural storing, uniting nations for ancient sciences, uniting nations for animal rights, uniting nations for children and youth, uniting nations for enlightened beings and avatars, uniting nations for feminine empowerment and gender equality, uniting nations against lawfare, uniting nations against persecutions and genocides, uniting nations for global peace and religious harmony, uniting nations for mental health and development, uniting nations for monks and nuns, uniting nations for mystical and spiritual sciences, uniting nations for nutritious food and hunger-free world, uniting nations for persecuted religions, uniting nations for revival of ancient civilization, nations for unique religions, uniting nations for yoga, uniting nations for ancient sacred arts and ancient sacred sciences, uniting nations for consciousness studies and consciousness practices, uniting nations for enlightened cultures and arts, uniting nations for indigenous aboriginal nations and traditions and cultures, uniting nations for advocating peace, uniting nations for yogic sciences, uniting nations for family health and development, uniting nations for rights of the immigrants, uniting nations for safe and supportive entertainment, uniting nations for best right spiritual techniques and methods and understand, uniting nations for prevention of mass killings, uniting nations for orphans and abandoned children, uniting nations for furthering the researches to find cure for HIV AIDS, uniting nations for against the atrocities and crimes. We are working in all this line, and devotees, disciples, volunteers are creating organizations in multiple nations to do all this good work.
Like the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has beautifully revealed, Kailasa has taken the responsibility, spiritual, social responsibility in every level to lead the humanity or to a better future, to create a peaceful, blissful, and amongst human beings, humanity, and all the beings living on planet Earth.
So today the theme given by the United Nations for the whole world, for this World Humanitarian Day, is about this climate crisis, how all of us have to come together. The whole humanity has to be together for this climate crisis. The climate emergency is wreaking havoc across the world at a scale that people on the front lines and the humanitarian community be able to manage. Where we do not know a solution, like as I was explaining very recently, one of the world's largest ever iceberg was broken. Something in the size, it was in the size of Manhattan, it was broken. And such huge things that are happening are giving serious alarm to all of us. So what exactly is the solution? What is the cause? And what are the consequences of this climate crisis? What is going to be happening when we have this? So, for all the viewers who are wondering what climate crisis is, I'm pretty sure that all of us are aware of this. Just to give a brief, the climate change means a change of climate which is attributed directly or indirectly to human activity that alters the composition of the global atmosphere, which is in addition to this natural climate variability observed over a comparable time periods. So now, what are some of the visible effects of this climate change right now? You can see like extreme weather events, more intense, larger and frequent droughts, heat waves, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, earthquakes, and glacier retreats and decline in the Arctic sea ice.
And also sea level rising and even the melting of the whole permafrost means the rock or soil with ice that stays frozen for 2 or more years usually lies below an active layer of soil that freezes and thaws. Also, another important thing is ocean acidification and warming of oceans as it absorbed over 90% of the excess heat in the climate change, loss of biodiversity and ecosystems collapsing, extinction of certain species of life and plants, extreme forest fires and wildfires, its frequency and impact. I'm sure almost every now and then we'll keep seeing in the news about wildfires in Australia, wildfires in California, here and there. So many things that are, so many wildfires that keep happening continuously. And freshwater loss and desertification, coral bleaching and death of reefs, the aquatic ecosystems, decline in fish population and other forms of aquatic life, destruction of the entire ecosystems such as swamps and even small islands. Every now and then, cyclones, hurricanes, tsunami warnings are happening in many places around the globe. UN has given a red alert because globally, around the globe, the global temperature has increased in 1 degree, which is extremely dangerous, which is going to have huge cascading impact, is going to find it extremely difficult.
Which humanity is already facing. Humanity is already facing, and if we go in this scale, we might not be able to even visualize the picture after 10 years. Less than 10 years, actually, given the rate at which the whole climate crisis, along with this pandemic, is happening. Every now and then we find new variants, Delta Plus, and like it's becoming more and more fatal. So, Mas Swatantra Priya, what do you think this climate change is impacting our day-to-day life as?
Yes, Ma. So I feel like the most important part is really to see what we have created, right? And where does that manifestation come from? And looking at how we've become actually so insensitive to life. Somewhere, somehow the disconnect happened between us and other living beings, and between us and our Mother Earth, and forgetting that everything is consciousness, everything is alive, that our very planet, our Mother Earth, is very much alive as much as we are. And somewhere, yes, that disconnect happened, and not understanding how our day-to-day actions can lead to such disastrous consequences for other beings who also have the right to live just as much as we do. And
very well said, no, because when physically see, one is about like how so many beings are getting affected at the same time and we are being insensitive to it, and that at the same time is affecting our physical health. See the way the amount of respiratory disorders have increased to such a level where now air needs to be brought. I remember 5 years before this used to be a meme that if we go in the scale, we have to start buying air. And in many countries, buying air has become a part of their normal lifestyle. So
yes,
see what level it is impacting us, and how many of us can go, just if you were even 10 years before, you would have gone and you will be able to experience the chilly weather of Ooty. Now, in so many places, even in Ooty, Ooty is a place in South India where it's always very cool and it's in the top of the hills. And people usually go there during summertime and it will be so cold. Even there, there's a huge temperature difference. So many places, unexpected heat waves are happening. This is impacting our mental and emotional.
Not just in limited to diseases as such, even day-to-day food people. There are so many countries, so many millions of people eating leaves, eating cactuses, dry plants, insects, because they do not have access to healthy food. They do not have access to normal lifestyle. They do not have access to any basic necessities for their life. So you can go ahead, Maswati.
And so the world now is looking at sustainability pioneers, individuals who are going to come up with the solutions to the problems and giving the objectives also for 2030 and how we need to find those solutions that will enable us to reduce the carbon footprint, and so that we can come back to the natural way of living. And it's quite shocking to see how, as a society, when we see all this crisis happening, how we become so used to it as if it was normal, right? But it's time now to really look at the solutions that are going to be sustainable, so that we can come back. We all have that innate ability to recreate a world, the ecosystem where all of us can thrive and reach the highest peak of our possibility while respecting each other. And so that is already there, and Hinduism has the solution, because actually we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to think of new ways, new technologies, new solutions. The solutions are already in the Hindu scriptures, and all we need to do is organize it, which the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is doing through the Nithyananda Hindu.
Actually,
Yes.
Because why it's so important, just to highlight that, extinction of all life, catastrophic impacts on Earth and all living systems. Actually, it is predicted that if we do not take an urgent action before 2030, in a decade, I think about 9 years left, the temperature will increase 1.5 degrees Celsius. When that happens, the climate change, the impacts of climate change will not be reversible. We're already seeing how the impacts are right now itself, and how this is exponentially worsened just in the last 3 years.
And especially in urban areas where it's often very hard concrete structures and not so much green spaces available, there's a huge amount of heat built up. So actually the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has told every Hindu to go back to the organic way of living, organic agriculture, and coming back to a green way of living, and also through vertical gardening, which will really help reduce the accumulated heat.
Actually, a very interesting thing is here. One is, of course, what Swamiji has been doing, where we can see all the Kailasas across the globe. We have thousands of Kailasas. So many Kailasas have already started the organic farming and doing vertical gardening, and also completely going green, where you don't use plastic, you do not use anything else, but all completely green. And we are also like this, we have a huge list, and Swamiji is one of the huge contributor for making the world go vegan. We have so many thousands of people, actually Hindus from across the globe, voted for vegetarianism.
You can go to the previous slides, please. No, you could go to the previous slides. The previous one. Yes. Now, let us also see what exactly is the world doing right now to tackle this climate change, its adverse impacts to climate change, etc. There are so many policies and frameworks which are laid out, like local, regional, international, that helps to reduce or mitigate the negative impacts of the climate crisis. And B, those that support the action plans for adapting to the climate change. Second is channeling the funds and resources towards climate change action plans and solutions, etc., which included even funding for activities from grassroots to all the way up, be it the action plans that are being laid out for this. And education at home, schools, bringing awareness to all the generations about this climate change impact, because each of us need to know what is the world that we are going to live in tomorrow. And advocacy, and the next is equality. Women represent half of the world's population. However, when it comes to decisions, they aren't fully represented at the table. And women are some of the best excuse me. Sorry. Women are some of the best stewards of the environment and grassroots leaders and activists. Support of women, especially those who are most affected, is being done. The next slide. Now, the United Nations has built a framework convention on this climate change, established as an international environment treaty to combat dangerous human interference with the climate system, in part by stabilizing greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere. Sorry for the technical glitch. Signed by 154 states, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, informally known as the Earth Summit, held in Rio de Janeiro from the 3rd to the 14th June 1992, established a secretariat headquartered in Bonn and entered into force on 21st of March 1994. The treaty called for ongoing scientific research and regular meetings, negotiations, and future policy agreements designed to allow ecosystems to adapt naturally to climate change, to ensure that food production is not threatened, and is to enable economic development to proceed in a sustainable manner. Now, the United Nations has been also working for this. So many countries from the last decade or so, so many countries, so many organizations, so many activists are working to bring awareness about this climate change. Now, let us see a Hindu outlook, Hindu solutions to the whole climate crisis. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and Kailasa, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism as the avatar, leading the 2 billion Hindus across the globe to a solution which is permanent, which is going to bring about a huge change into this whole climate change crisis. Yes. Ma Swatantra Priya, you can go ahead and you can continue to share with us about how what Kailasa is doing to tackle this climate change.
So Kailasa is adhering to the agriculture-based economy and superconscious-based existence. If we look at the difference between organic farming systems versus conventional, and research done over 40 years, we can see that organic farming actually consumes 45% less energy. There's 40% fewer carbon emission releases, a drastic improvement of health and soil quality, and 40% increase in potential to produce yields, which leads to a thriving ecosystem, meaning that it supports the biodiversity and increases the presence of earthworms and insects, mammals, all the beings which are coexisting together and creating this ecosystem, which leads to nutritious food and good health for all of us. So Kailasa, Uniting Nations for Organic Agriculture, is cultivating the land, is buying, yes, seeds have been bought for growing organic cow feed grass at Kailasa in Tiruvannamalai to feed the 26 cows located in the mountain path. And with the grace and blessings of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam, the land in multiple instances, 13th, so this is ongoing, happening. So the land is being plowed with organic manure mix and the seeds are being sown. The land is also being readied for planting paddy and ground nuts. So these activities are going on.
Thank you so much, Master. You gave a nice insight into how the agriculture-based economy is thriving in Kailasa and how this is one of the big contributions of Swamiji for this. Actually, this brought a very beautiful point. You were mentioning how the way the Hindu way of agriculture also encourages more earthworms, more for other beings to thrive. This is a very important point. I would just like to highlight it here. Climate crisis. Did you all know? One of the main contributors for this climate crisis is the meat industry. The largest carbon footprint is from this meat industry. In Kailasa, the very main objective is where ahimsa paramo dharmaha. Ahimsa is the highest principle. And we all are taught to live as all beings, not just human beings, but all the beings are equal. Very recently, I saw a news where it was talking about how a huge number of chipmunks, I think about 600 chipmunks, were ordered to be killed. And same with 500 camels were ordered to be killed, slaughtered on the same day, just because 2 of them tested COVID positive. But is that the same thing we do with the humans? Obviously, no. It is not. So the next question might pop up, but how are all beings living together and having a peaceful coexistence even linked with this climate crisis? So in the science that we were learning when we were young, there's this concept called as food chain. Do you remember, like how we say, like how one animal is dependent on another animal? Yes. So, like for example, when we say, okay, like let's say, what will happen if a bee disappears all of a sudden from the planet? The consequences of it is something huge. Every being has a purpose for its existence. For example, earthworms. Without these earthworms existing, we will not have fertile lands. We will not have the decomposition happening. Our whole planet will be stinking. Yes, extremely small. Might not even be the size of a finger. But even those beings play a very important role in the ecosystem. Actually, each and every being is part of this whole virtuous cycle, the whole cycle which needs to be completed in order for the whole world to be conducive for us to live in. Because Swamiji beautifully shared and highlighted a very important fact in one of the satsangs recently, where Swamiji told, where many people in the Western world run with the idea of this one life theory, based on which we try as much as possible, okay, I have just 60 years to live. In the 60 years, let me do what I can, let me experience the best. In that greed or in that fear, we overuse planet Earth. We grab as much as meat we can and as much of trees we can and make furnitures. We cut down as much as trees so that we can get the pulp to make whatever we want. We do everything as much as possible in that 60 years. In the end, we leave exploiting Mother Earth. But Sanatana Hindu Dharma, where you are taught that you come down again and again and again. So naturally, you are going to be born again
living in the same planet Earth. Our very fundamental principle is not exploiting, it is enriching, where each and every being, this principle of coexistence, it is not just, oh, okay, let me just go share with my friends, that is what is coexistent. No. Even a small ant that is crawling on the ground, keeping the whole ecosystem alive, be it nature, be it the trees, plants, be it water, be it animals, be it insects, birds, everything. We are taught to coexist. Kailasa is building the ecosystems around the globe to create this peaceful coexistence amongst all the sentient beings, not just limited to human beings. It is Kailasa's responsibility to revive the ancient Hindu sustainable way of living as it was once lived in ancient Hindu kingdoms. When Hinduism was lived in 56 deshas, we had one of the most best thriving economy. We contributed, Hindus contributed, the Hindu nations contributed to over 64% of the GDP, and we were one of the most successful, most progressive economy. We were extremely successful, and still we were able to make a living without harming Mother Earth, without exploiting nature. The next slide.
And the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has also encouraged communities to come together to recreate this way of organic living around Shiva temples, also recreating the way of life from the ancient kingdoms, and like the Kumari civilization, Pandya and Chola cities, and recreating those kingdoms in the shape of a mandala, so all the community together. Yes, and as you were mentioning earlier, speaking about vegetarianism being actually the only solution for solving the climate crisis. If we actually look at the statistics, which are very alarming, 51% of worldwide greenhouse gas emissions can be attributed to animal agriculture, specifically cattle, buffalo, sheep, goats, camels, and pigs, which are raised and killed for food. And meat eating is responsible, according to a study by the Oxford University, to 2.5 times as many emissions as vegans. Vegetarians will also refrain from consuming eggs, dairy products, and other animal-derived items. And people who eat more than 0.1 kg of meat per day generate 7.2 kg of carbon dioxide equivalent each day. And if we compare to vegetarians and vegans, they generate 3.8 kg and 2.9 kg of CO2 equivalent. And so according to this study, the dietary emissions of meat eaters are 50 to 54% higher than they are for vegetarians, and 99 to 102% higher than for vegans. And so the very way that we eat has the power to save our planet, actually. And we have a short clip here that we're going to play.
I remember after this voting was conducted and all the Hindus across the globe had decided, I think more than 90% had decided more than 80% had decided that no, meat eating should not be there and everyone should go completely vegetarian. Actually, Hinduism is a great visionary for humanity and is fortunately still available. All that is needed is to bring legitimacy to it so that more and more people can be educated and start practicing the Hindu way of life, which is the most respectful of the other beings and Mother. Hindu is a solution to global warming. Becoming vegan, becoming vegetarian is a solution to global warming. The solution to global warming resides in that one fundamental principle of Hinduism, where we respect and revere every sentient being. We respect and revere each and every being as consciousness, as divine. We do not harm, we do not kill. We function based on the principle of ahimsa paramo dharma. Actually, this not just stops. See, one important thing we need to understand here, it is not about as a moral or like as a moral value, like just the way to live, but it actually impacts the world. It's not for, oh, you have to be non-violent, so you should not kill. No. Scientifically, you killing another being is going to impact your climate and affect the very planet that you are living in. We are seeing it today. Understand the inner violence does affect the outer space. How you are inside does affect the outer space. If you carry that violence inside you, actually here, I remember of one, I think like a, let's say like a power that Swamiji had given to all the Gurukul kids, where we used to do the stalking with rose plant. Paramahamsa Yogananda used to do this, where every day he'll talk with the rose plant and the rose plant would be without thorns. See, roses, as we know, why do rose plants have thorns? To protect themselves. Because they feel they can get violated from outside. But what if you promise, you give them that secure feeling? They don't need to feel that insecurity because they are violated. When you drop your violence and with that space, when you talk to the rose plants thorns. And as the rose plant drops its thorns, you can very clearly see there won't even be a mark of that in the plant. So that shows how the nature responds to your very thought. So when your thought itself is established in that non-violence, nature responds to it.
And what you are sharing has actually been proven by research. If most people have probably heard of the experiments conducted by the Japanese researcher Masaru Emoto with the water, where he basically proved through his experiments that the conscious intention that we hold actually has the power to change the molecular structure of the water itself, which is similar when you're sharing about the rose plants and having that context, that cognition that I will not harm you, and rose plant feeling like I can never be violated, and therefore dropping the thorns and peacefully coexisting. So our very consciousness has the power to change the molecular structure and have visible impacts on the material plane.
And also as a Hindu ecosystem itself, we have, in multiple levels, this needs to be understood. We are having the topic as how climate crisis is a outlook for the World Humanitarian Day and joining the human race that the UN is conducting. What we need to understand, what we need to realize is that the only solution for the climate crisis is Hindu lifestyle and revival of Hindu enlightenment ecosystems. I'll give you one example. 2004 tsunami, all of us are aware of it. There's many South Asians would be knowing it. It was one of the worst ever tsunamis, at least in the recent times. After the Japan tsunami in 2011, next worst one was in 2004. Literally, it had affected the entire southern India, except one place. A small, tiny town in Tamil Nadu, Tiruchendur. Because in Tiruchendur, the Murugan temple is on the seashore where every day the waves literally crash on this temple walls. Like you just go and stand in the end of the temple, near the temple wall, you can actually feel that water splashing on you every few seconds once as the waves come and crash on the temple walls. But the day the tsunami was happening across the globe, so many parts of the globe, instead of affecting the temple, the water with the sea withdrew itself 20 meters away. So understand how powerful. So that day, all the people who were in Tiruchendur, the entire southern coastal line was affected. So many lives lost, huge loss, except for the people who were in Tiruchendur temple. They were saved. So on the waves exit that part, just the temple, for that, I think about 1 kilometer range. Except that, everywhere else tsunami has hit. How is that possible? Understand that is the power of enlightenment ecosystem. This is just one example. If you all remember, I think in 2016, Ujjain, when we all were having the Kumbh Mela, and there was a huge, all of a sudden there was a cyclone that happened, and so many camps were affected. In our camp, Swamiji just went and put his foot, like he just went and stood, and like you could actually see like the storm happening less than half a kilometer away. You could see that whole like brown colored storm happening, and Swamiji just stood and looked through his third eye at it, and it actually took a turn. Except for our campus, all other campus got affected. So many lives were lost. So what, in an enlightenment ecosystem, how, starting from how all of us coexist, the peaceful coexistence, where we all together coexist to such a level where we all realize and we all say that I will not violate you, you cannot violate me, no one can violate each other. And that way, all the beings coexist. That actually enables the whole nature cycle to function. Understand, when our body can, even if there's a cut, even if you do not put a band-aid, you don't do anything to it. When our body has its own intelligence to heal itself, is nature not intelligent enough to give specific beings in each place? Nature, if you leave it as is. Ganga got cleaned by herself when the whole India was in lockdown, which was crores and crores of rupees project. Ganga cleaned herself. Like how Swamiji said, she just needs 3 days without anyone adding more dirt. She will clean herself. Same way, nature is intelligent enough. It is we as humans going and exploiting the nature, which is the problem. Even if we respect all beings as equal, respect the beings. Revere, you should see, if you've seen how Swamiji sits, even if he goes and sits on a chair, he reveres, goes down to the chair and reveres. So in that level, how to, like, multiple levels, how the enlightenment ecosystem helps, and on top of all, how the avatar helps, how he's protecting us. One, giving us this knowledge, reviving this knowledge, reviving this enlightenment ecosystem, giving us this enlightenment ecosystem. Second, personally being with each and every one of us, saving us from becoming victims to this calamities, whether it's man-made or not. That revival of that level, enlightenment system is the only solution, and Kailasa is the only hope for humanity. Supreme fount of Hinduism is the only hope for the whole of humanity. And this is what we want to share on this World Humanitarian Day with all of you. And everyone tuned in and participated with us. Get ready. We have a very, very, very special darshan today at, I think, very shortly starting. I think tomorrow, 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time, which is 6:30 a.m. Pacific Time, we have the live Bhava Samadhi Darshan of Devi Parashakti on the auspicious day of Varalakshmi Vrat. So we hope all of you join, and it's going to be exclusively on two-way. You might be seeing the link on the scroll, events.kailasa.org. So do tune in and let's all get ready to receive amazing blessings and compassion and be showered with Devi Parashakti's praise. So with this, we're coming to the conclusion of the segment, and we'll be concluding now with the prayer. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Bhagavat Shri Nithyananda Paramashivam Padakarpanamastu. Om Nithyanandam